Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am the Twisted Jedi, and in this video I will be doing a full review of Solo: A Star Wars Story. Now this video will contain spoilers, so if you don't want any of those, click off this video now. However, before you go, just know that I will try and do a no spoiler review as well and get that on the channel as soon as I can. Now living out in Australia, I was lucky enough to see Solo much sooner than everyone else in the world, and I went in with low expectations, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. Anyways, I'm going to jump into all this spoilery goodness now, so this is your last warning, and if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the non-spoiler review as well. Anyways, I want to start off with the biggest spoiler in the movie, and that is a cameo appearance from a character that I did not expect. Now I had heard rumors about this, but I really didn't think it was going to come true, but during a scene towards the end of the film, Qi'ra contacts a hooded figure who appears on a hologram in front of her. I thought maybe it was Palpatine at first, but then he speaks and actually removes his hood, revealing it to be Darth Maul. Darth Maul orders Qi'ra to meet him on Dathomir to discuss the next part of their plan. Obviously, this surprised a lot of people, and with the news that this film could turn into a trilogy, has me super excited for appearances by Maul in the future. As you guys know, he's definitely one of my favorite characters, and my whole channel is pretty much branded with him. He's really cool, and I'm glad to see him back on the big screen. Anyways, after that, let's get into more of a review type discussion. I want to start with the characters and then I'll get into some of the story. For those of you wondering how the acting was, Alden Ehrenreich did a decent job portraying Han. However, while I was watching, I didn't feel like it was a young Han Solo on screen. To me, it felt like a whole new character who just used some of Han's quotes from the other movies. Lando, on the other hand, was cast absolutely perfectly, and Donald Glover did an amazing job. He has this weird relationship type dynamic with his droid L3, and when she dies, it almost feels like Lando has some serious feelings for her. L3 was a sassy droid and a know-it-all, and was very cocky and overconfident for someone who is supposed to be answering to Lando and his second in charge. But at the same time, she had a minimal amount of screen time and wasn't really too relevant to the story. In terms of the rest of the crew, Val and Rio Durant also both die. However, they only lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. I would have liked to see more from Rio, as I thought he could have been a really cool character, but Val was kind of just not really interesting, apart from being Beckett's girlfriend or kind of partner, so that's a little bit disappointing as well. Speaking of Beckett, Woody Harrelson did an absolutely great job. His opening scene, he basically walks into the middle of a war zone and starts spinning his pistols around and shooting anyone he sees. It's really cool, and I think Woody Harrelson did a pretty decent job. As far as Qi'ra is concerned, she grew up with Han on Corellia, and they had an intimate relationship. However, during their attempt to escape the planet, they were separated only to meet up years later. Qi'ra is now working for the gangster Dryden Voss and is sort of partnered with him in some kind of weird submissive way. Han and Chewie's first meeting comes when Han is caught deserting the Imperial training camp, and he gets thrown into a pit where Chewie is being held captive by the Empire. It felt very similar to the Rancor scene in Return of the Jedi, however the beast at the bottom ended up being Chewbacca. While fighting each other, Han yells something in the Wookiee language to Chewie, which ultimately stops the fight and ends up with Han helping him to escape the pit. This scene was kind of cool, as I always wondered how they would introduce the two, and I have to say the direction that they took wasn't too bad. In terms of Enfys Nest, for those of you wondering, yes, she is a female, and in the beginning of the movie, she and her crew basically hijack all the shipments that Han and Beckett's crew are stealing for Dryden Voss, and in all cases, Enfys Nest and her crew are against Han and Beckett. The scene on the train is really exciting and full of action, and Enfys Nest staff has a few more abilities they weren't shown in the trailer, including like an outward pulse burst thing, similar to a force push that comes out of it, as well as electrical capabilities and the blade igniting for a really cool looking effect. I think her character was definitely one of my more favorite characters from the movie, and her development was really good as well, which you learn more about towards the end. Getting into more of the movie and scenes, like I mentioned, I really enjoyed the train scene. It was one of my favorites from the whole movie. Enfys Nest and Beckett fighting each other really made for a cool scene, and the constant twists and turns the train would make made it really fun to watch them try and balance on top of it. The scene where Han first meets Lando in an attempt to win the Millennium Falcon is also good, however it's mostly made to be a good scene by the acting of Lando. The two end up playing Sabacc for the Millennium Falcon, and you would think the game is won by Han, and that's how he ends up getting the Falcon, but Han actually ends up losing to Lando, although Lando had cards up his sleeve and was essentially cheating in typical Lando fashion. I think the dynamic between Han and Lando was really cool to see and gives a good sense of why they are such good friends when you see them in The Empire Strikes Back. Further into the movie, Han's crew end up working for Dryden Voss, as I mentioned before, which then leads to Han and Enfys Nest both realizing they need to turn on Dryden and keep the shipment to help fuel the beginning of the rebellion, which was ultimately Enfys Nest's secret purpose all along. Another great scene at the end of the film is when Dryden, Han, and Kira all battle it out on Dryden's ship, and Kira ends up killing him and taking over his ship, and also taking his crew for herself. She then abandons Han and Chewie and proceeds to call Darth Maul, like I mentioned earlier. This scene honestly had me both stunned and excited for future movies in this series because so much was left unanswered. What is Kira's plan? Will Han end up meeting Maul? Will Han and Kira get back together? Will Kira die? So many things and so little answers, so I really am interested to see what direction they take in the future. As far as the little extra things in the movie, I really like the small details like the vehicles and weapons. There were multiple vehicles in the movie that were new, and I love the speeder we see Han steal at the beginning of the movie, which is the same speeder we saw in the trailers. There are also some really cool and different looking speeder bikes being ridden by the patrol troopers on Corellia, and also some of the speeder bikes ridden by Enfys Nest and her crew in the train scene. In terms of the Kessel Run, Han pilots the Falcon through a shortcut, which ends up being a very bumpy and dangerous ride, and they even run into some giant beast, which I don't know the name for right now, but I will find that out. If any of you guys know it, drop it in the comments below because I'm interested to know. But anyways, the Kessel Run ends with the beast getting sucked into some kind of wormhole and the Falcon narrowly escaping and jumping to hyperspace. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this scene was kinda cool, but it just felt like there was going to be more to the Kessel Run than just flying through some rocky space and outrunning a monster. I think they could have done a lot more with it, and when you hear Kessel Run, you think of something a lot more in depth than just what they gave us. Anyways, once they land on Kessel, Han and the crew are stealing a cargo for Dryden, and when they are discovered, a crazy all-out war breaks loose, and there are some insane looking weapons that are brought out. Just to name a few, there was something that looked like a kind of minigun, and Lando had a different looking blaster to the X-8 Night Sniper that we're used to seeing. Beckett also had what looks to be a sniper rifle earlier on in the movie, as well as another weapon that had multiple large attachments, and when they were all removed, it ended up being the blaster he gives to Han. So to sum up everything on the movie, I feel like it was pretty solid overall. I like the train scene, the fight with Kira and Dryden, Enfys Nest in general as a character was quite cool, and the interactions between Han and Lando, as well as Han and Chewie, were good as well. On the downside, I wasn't a big fan of the Kessel Run, and L3 was a little bit annoying as a droid. Val wasn't much of a character, and her and Rio died so quickly, they didn't really have much of a chance at getting to see what they could do. Anyways guys, that is all I have for now. I will do a follow-up video after I see the movie again if there are things that I have missed and I think they are worthy of a whole video. All of this was just off the top of my head after seeing the movie, so I may have missed a few things, and if there's anything that you can remember, definitely drop that in the comments below. If you can take anything away from this review, in my opinion, if you're going into Solo with low expectations, you will hopefully be pleasantly surprised as I was. For a Star Wars movie with no mention of the Force or Jedi, I think it still did pretty well. I want to rate it about a 6.5 out of 10, but I think it's going to grow on me the more I see it and the more I think about it. Now, obviously I said there was no mention of Jedi or the Force, but we do get to see one lightsaber ignited, which is really, really cool, and it ends up being Darth Maul's, and yes, he ignites it on the hologram talking to Kira, which is extremely exciting and has me super pumped to see him back on the big screen. Other than that guys, go see the movie yourselves and come back to this video and comment what your thoughts are. Also drop a big thumbs up for Solo being better than expected and a cameo appearance from Darth Maul. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe for more Star Wars content in the future. I am the Twisted Jedi, and may the Force be with you always.
The Sith are all powerful. You are no match for me.